learn a little bit more now about the policies and challenges that are surrounding this form of technology. And joining me to discuss that is Ant Morse, author and fractional AI advisor. And thank you very much indeed for joining me. You were listening there to Joshua and hearing some of my concerns. And I think one of the biggest concerns is that we don't understand its limits. So how can we be aware of what guardrails we need to put around it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's two different parts to this. There's where we are with the technology itself today. So what is it actually capable of, and what are the models that and the tools that we can actually use? And then where is it heading? And this is where there's a kind of a conflict of opinion. You know, there's experts suggesting that we're going to get to general intelligence. This is where it surpasses our own intelligence and it kind of, starts to think for itself. And that's that kind of worrying point that you and Joshua kind of mentioned. But actually, if we pull it back to where we are today, we really only have a very clever calculator. It's a prediction model. It is impressive in what it does and the way people use it. And we're at that point now where we probably wouldn't like to give it back. We're using it more and more. But actually, it is still only a calculator. And in making its predictions, it gets things wrong. And that's where there is this concern that not only what is the model we're using, but actually what are the outputs that it's giving us back? How good are they? And if we're using this in a business environment, a corporate environment, then we run the risk of, confusing the matter massively. Also, as well, we're not sure what these models are being trained on. Everybody is racing to get to our attention and in turn our wallet spend. But what are they training their data on? We've been generating AI content for quite a while. And if we think about how it works in this guessing and predicting and trying to give us an answer it thinks we want, might not be accurate. So the model is actually being trained on what they refer to as AI slop. It's its own possible questionable data. So there is those kind of clear distinctions, what it's capable of today, but also, where it might head in the future. And that is probably a grayer area where, we'll leave certain experts to debate and discuss and progress their technologies. But right now we have a very useful tool, which is, fundamentally changing the future of work.
Can I ask you about technofeudalism, which I mentioned at the top of the programme? I've just bought Yanis's book, actually, literally just this evening, looking at technofeudalism, because that has got to be where, for me, policies and guardrails and blocks are put on these vast companies, Palantir, X, all of these companies, and in the hands of a few people who are pretty close now to running the world in terms of technology. And I can't see any other future but techno-feudalism unless these monopolies are stopped.
You're absolutely right. And it's more troubling is it is accelerating towards that possibility of feudalism at the moment. Where we are at the moment, as mentioned, we've got these incredibly useful tools that help us do our job. Where it's heading, and heading at some pace, is to agents and assistants. And basically, these will be parts of AI that do clever things for us in our daily jobs, so they make our lives easier. What that will quickly do is move towards assistant AI, which is where me and you will both have an assistant. I have a number of different test beds, and I have an AI assistant called Scout, and Scout kind of guides me through my day and does various tasks for me. When those are taken from pilots and concept into deployed models and commercially available models, we'll all have them. Now, these will...
But will we be forced to have them, because without them we won't be able to achieve anything? I mean, maybe not with the assistants, but we're already seeing it with online banking, right? That we're being forced into taking this technology. We've taken it. They then take away that human contact. I mean, this new ID card that is being mooted, that will mean we cannot access. So people might say, oh, will it be voluntary to some point? No, it won't, because it will make it so difficult that we have to have that. That's what I'm talking about. It's that forced reliance on a few companies.
Yeah, we will, in short. And if you think about this technology, kind of scared people. It still scares people today. We're unsure about what it is, but yet people are using it. It took 16 years to get to 100 million users of the mobile phone. It took 3 months to do the same for OpenAI. So,
Wow.
a technology we're all slightly scared of, but we're not frightened to use it. Now we're entering that next stage where we've gone from kind of trialing and testing it to actually paying for it. I chair an independent innovation forum of business leaders across the UK and some global organizations. And in March last year, we asked them, how many of you pay for AI, of any sort? And 8%, there's about 300 members, 8% were paying for AI. We asked exactly the same question in November, just gone. 54% are now
That
paying.
is another point. That's where
Yeah,
the feudalism comes in,
you
because
bet. You
they
bet.
offer it for free, then
Yeah.
we pay for it, and then we're paying rent to the overlords again.
Indeed, indeed, and this is where, when we move to this, from I mean, ask the question: could we do without AI? And if we were to say, well, if 54% are paying for it, well, what do the other 46% do? Do they, if we took the free tools away, would they then pay for it? And I think the answer is yes, they
Mm,
probably would,
mm.
because people hop around the free models, to get best value.
Well, we
Where
see
it's
it
go,
with things like Netflix, don't we? They take
yeah,
away something, and then if you want
yeah,
it back, you have to pay for it.
you
So
have to pay.
there's a model there, and it's successful.
Absolutely, and it's creeping as well. So
Mm.
if we pay for AI, what will you pay for an assistant? So if it goes from writing a document and helping you navigate a piece of research to suddenly, renewing your car insurance or speaking to your bank or speaking to your water provider, suddenly it's doing more. You mentioned in your introduction around health. I mean, health is going to be massive, and this is where I play tech advocate, but also devil's advocate. The things it's going to do in health, we can't, nor should we stop. It's going to
No,
be
I agree.
incredible, both at a scientific level, but also at a personal level, our personal health. These agents and assistants, they won't just ring the bank and challenge a transaction. They'll say, you need to go to the gym, or you've been visiting McDonald's too much, or your
I
blood
don't
pressure's
want that
slightly
though.
high. I know it's going to get a bit much, isn't
I
it?
don't
But
want
it's
that.
but it's coming, and you'll pick and choose those services. But when it gets to that, guess what? So will the fee. It will suddenly be of such value. They say, well, I'm going to pay more. My view is, how quickly will we move from a £20 OpenAI subscription to a two, three, £400 assistant subscription?
Yeah.
Now, also, around the periphery of that, we look at things like spatial computing, these kind of headsets and glass technology, and then we look at robotics. And you mentioned NVIDIA earlier, and Jensen Huang's view is that robots are going to be here before we know it, and they will. But this isn't just because they're looking for new innovations. These actually move us from a guessing model to an assistant to what they refer to as world models, because your AI can only answer questions and help you based on what it knows, which is usually what you've told it. So at the moment, it's kind of harmless. It's probably, there'll be a few listeners cringe at that comment, but we only give it certain bits of information. When it starts to pick up on things like glass technology, so it's aware of our surroundings, and robots in the workplace and in our homes eventually, suddenly it will learn so much about our surrounding lives. Plus, our assistants will know where we go shopping, where we know who we bank with, who our water companies are with. Suddenly, we move from a clever bit of tech into what we refer to as world models, where these things are super conscious, and that's when it will really impress. It will catch many people out, and it'll catch lots of organizations out, but ultimately, it will get there. Now, the challenge here is, this is when we are so embedded with these solutions that we naturally accelerate feudalism, because at that point, how do we switch it off? Also, as you'll probably find with your own usage, it learns more about you the
Yeah.
more you use it. Well, at the moment, can we migrate our memory? We can migrate our phone number from one network to another, but could you migrate your OpenAI or your Gemini or your Grok data to another model? Well, the answer at the moment is no. And there's a reason for that, because that data is training the model to make it better, but also to improve the service it gives to you. It doesn't want to hand that to a competitor. The race at the top, at this tech bubble conversation, is so ferocious. It is driving the acceleration of these solutions, as I say, whether it's assistant AI, or whether it's robotics or spatial computing. And that's when it builds us to this. Now, there is a kind of positive outcome here, or potential for a very positive outcome, which is, rather than be owned by the feudalist system, actually, do we look at things like sovereign or cooperative AI models? Now, many will say, yeah, but it's too expensive. You can't just start a cooperative and say, well, let's build our own version of OpenAI. But actually, DeepSeek did that. They did that, a couple of year or so back. So why can't we? So actually, and in doing that, could we say, well, I'm happy to give up all of this information to have great services, whether it be an assistant helping me pay the bank or keep me fit and healthy. But actually, I want my information to be very private, and we kind of lock it down into this, private system,
Well,
which we all
we've got to come up
agree.
with something,
I
otherwise,
think that's the answer.
all
Yeah.
of those tech bros are just gonna own us if they
Yeah.
don't already. And it's great to talk to you. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. I wish we had longer. Ant Morse there, author and fractional AI advisor. Quick break.